Hello everybody, welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. So today what we're going to talk about is what to plant in March. Pretty much almost everything gets planted in March up here in northeast Jacksonville. And I'm northeast Florida, pretty much any of the 9B zones. I'm in zone 9B now. It used to be 9A, which is kind of neat because what is now 295 used to be 9A. But anyway, so we used to be 9A, now we're 9B. Not a huge amount of change. The weather is a little warmer than it used to be, but still we managed to get some frost. So, at any rate, I digress. Going off on the wrong subject. What we need to get started planting here in March is pretty much almost everything, with a few exceptions. But we only have about 4 months until the real heat starts. So any of the cooler temperature stuff really needs to get planted soon. Okay? I'm going to go through the list. Arugula, basil, beans, beets, bok choy, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, chard, collards, corn, cucumbers, eggplant, lettuce, melons, okra, peppers, spinach, summer squash, tomatoes, turnips, and winter squash. That's what it lists. Let me go to my old list too, because some of that I think is better. In March it says bush beans, pole beans, cantaloupes, corn, cucumbers, eggplant, okra, black-eyed peas, peppers, potatoes, though I think that's a little late for potatoes, pumpkin, summer squash, winter squash, tomatoes, carrots, celery, collards, endive, kohlrabi, leeks, lettuce, parsley, English peas, radishes, and turnips. Now, some of the things that are on the list are a little bit questionable. All right, let me go through some of them. Bok choy, first off. You can plant bok choy, but once it starts getting above 80, it likes to bolt. So if you can catch it before it bolts, or if you can keep it shaded, or in some way keep it cooler, you might be able to get bok choy to grow. But once the temps get above 80, it usually bolts. Broccoli is kind of the same thing. I have some broccoli plants and I'm going to move over here. But again, it tends to want to head out real quick, making the heads much smaller than typical. Cabbage, it says to transplant only, which I have some cabbage. I may move over here, we'll see. Carrots, the last month for carrots. Chard, it should be fine. Let me see here, hang on. Lettuce is another one. So lettuce is questionable right now. I mean, once again, if the temps stay high, then it'll start bolting right away. And particularly your green lettuces, the burgundy lettuces seem to do a lot better this time of year, but the green lettuces tend to get very bitter. And you can tell, here, hang on. So I'm going to show you this, hopefully you can see it. But if you see right there at the end where I pulled it off, if you can see that white milk, all right, which this one doesn't have a lot to it. Let's see. And it's still good, all right. But when you start seeing the white milk right here at the very tip of the leaf, when you see that, that's when you know everything's bitter, all right. So, and that tends to happen once the temps get above 80 on a regular basis. Some of the other stuff, mustards, they grow all the time. They're like weeds around here. Potatoes, probably should have already had them in the ground. I normally try and do it before Valentine's Day. I was planning on doing it in February, but I thought, man, you know, I really need to plant potatoes. So Let's see what else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. So your cooler temperature stuff, you know, a lot just depends on the weather. I mean, if we get a nice cool March, we stay in the 70s, everything will go great, and you'll have a good time, a good amount of time, I should say, before it starts to bolt, and you'll be able to go ahead and get a good harvest off of your crops. Now, if you have seed that you created or that you grew, obviously it's not going to cost you anything. Like one of the things they don't talk about is cilantro. I got this big old bag of cilantro seed, all right, and I'm going to plant some of this, even though it's probably past its prime time, and we'll see if it grows. Great. If not, well, you know, it didn't cost me anything. This is all seed that I grew here in my garden. All right, so one of my pet peeves has always been people who make garden videos and all they do is talk. Talk. I like to show. So with that being said, we're going to kind of think about what do we want to plant, and I'll go ahead and throw some plants in the ground. All right, now some of this stuff that I mentioned we want to do quickly, but we also want to, what, Mr. Kitty? Something scared the cat. Poor thing. I know, Mr. Kitty. Hey, get out of there. I'm be digging in my garden now. Now this is my square foot garden, and we're going to get back into it. I'm going to go through a whole video on a square foot garden and how to grow it. But for now, this would be a great place to start talking about seeding. Okay? Now, before you plant, I like to go ahead and clear anything out that's weeds. It's like this is dollarweed, just a baby dollarweed that's trying to start. And we want to get that out wherever possible beforehand. I mean, you know, we're going to have to pull weeds as we go along. But stuff like this will get big and really start to take over. Alright, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab a plant. I'm going to grab me some of the stuff I've gotten in another spot in the garden, which hasn't been growing really great because the soil there is somewhat hydrophobic. It's just not the best soil. You know, I originally packed these beds up with sand that I got from the bottom of when they dug out my pond back behind me. And so it's taken me a while to really try and improve the soil. It's still somewhat sandy. But what I'm going to do this year, I'm going to try and pay really close attention and do better with the side dressing, with compost, and then mulching. Alright, so with that being said, I need to get something that's going to be here that can take a decent temperature, and as the sun will start to get over on this side, shade somewhat the stuff over on this side. Alright, so once again, what I'm looking for is something that's going to get tall. Broccoli tends to get tall. This is one that I started growing over in another spot, which, like I said, the soil isn't the greatest. So we're going to dig this out. And when you do this, you want to try and get a nice big root ball wherever possible to put in the ground. Alright. Now this ground here, this dirt here, I've really worked on a lot over the years, trying to get it as fertile as possible. Using my compost that I make here. And then what we'll do is we'll continue to add more compost throughout the year. Side dressing, I'm going to do a lot better this year than I did last. But this is a broccoli plant. This will actually grow up, should get up by yay tall and help to shade the stuff back behind it. Alright, now with that being said, I am going to plant some carrots. Now, what's the secret to carrots? Everybody seems to struggle with carrots. Really, there isn't one. Just like anything else, keep them wet. Now, I will tell you though, you don't want to bury them deep. They need to be just barely scratched in, like so. Now I'm going to make 3 rows of carrots, and you know, each carrot's going to take about yay much. So I'm going to probably thin them down to about 4 carrots in each row of 3. So it'll basically be 12 carrots in this 1 square foot. Alright. Grab my seeds. Now my favorite carrot is this Danvers 126. They seem to grow the best for me. I know a lot of people talk about a lot of other different varieties, but these seem to do pretty well. I like them. I have tried other varieties, and I mean, they're okay. These are a nice sweet carrot, and they seem to grow well as long as you water them. Now, I will water this daily. Once I get these planted right now, I'm going to water this daily until they get up to be, you know, an inch or two tall. Once I can really tell that I got carrots growing, get them thinned out, and then I'll probably back it off to about every other day. Okay. Now you can see it's pretty much surrounded by peppers and broccoli, and that's another thing we'll go over when I finish up my square foot garden. But there are certain things that grow well with others, what is known as companion planting. And you kind of want to think about what you're planting where, because some plants will do better than others with you know, certain neighbors. And so it's just one of the considerations when you're planting a square foot garden like this. All right, I do like to have things in nice neat rows wherever possible, and the idea behind that is so that basically I can tell what's a weed and what's not. So if it's not in a row, then I pretty much know that what I've got is something I didn't plant. Which brings me to another interesting question. What is a weed? What is your definition? What is my definition of a weed? Basically, a weed is anything that's growing in your garden that you didn't plan on growing. All right? Like for me, mustard greens are a weed. Now, that doesn't mean I don't harvest them, that we don't keep them or use them. It just means that they were not intended to be growing there, and so they can get in the way, and therefore are a weed. All right? So next time your association comes back and tells you get rid of the weeds, tell them those aren't weeds. I want them growing there. And that's the definition of a weed. All right, well anyway, we're going to go ahead and plant this up, and we'll talk more about that later. But that's basically the list of what you want to get done this time of year. I'm going to go over it real quick again. And that is arugula, basil, beans, beets, bok choy, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, chard, collards, corn, cucumbers, eggplant, lettuce, melons, okra, peppers, spinach, summer squash, tomatoes, turnips, and winter squash. All right, thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, give me a like and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Most importantly, grow something. Get something growing in your yard. You'll thank yourself. You'll be very happy to be able to go out in your yard and grab food for your table. And it saves you money. All right, thanks for stopping by. Y'all come back and see me.